Welcome back to the first official episode of the rebranding of Are You Listening with Abigail Richardson. Anyone that's watching the visual, you can see I'm doing this from my bed. And this is the kind of vibes that I want it to have. I do want it to kind of have, girly chit chat. We're just having a chat vibes. So it only felt right to do this from my bed. And I wanted to go straight into this week's thought. And I'm going to go straight onto my phone just to find... Okay, so I've written down... This kind of basically just goes off of what I was talking about in the intro episode. That I'm 6 months away from 30 and I've got some thoughts. So I've written down here that I thought I'd feel more grown up by now. And yeah, I typed this into my notes app probably quite late at night, trying to sleep, and I was like, right, okay, I've had a thought. I thought I would be more grown up by now. And yeah, I don't even know what grown up means, but I just think when you're in your early 20s and you think, or even like when you're a teenager and you think of people who are 30, you really think, wow, like they've got their shit figured out. They know what they are doing. And 30 feels like this really big milestone. Like, isn't it bizarre that you turn 21, everyone puts emphasis on 21, and then the next one isn't until you're 30? And I remember I was in lockdown when I turned 25, and I was adamant to try and make that a big birthday. There was no way I was going to turn 21 and then have to wait 9 years until I was 30 for my next big birthday. But I was stuck in lockdown, and my little sister, she made such an effort, and this would have been the third lockdown. Can't go out, can't do anything, and yeah, she made such an effort, bless her. Like, we got like this whole balloon, like 25 made. I'll see if I can find a picture actually, and I'll insert it here. She, did big breakfast, things like that. We all got dressed up. Like, it was lovely, but obviously we was in lockdown, so we couldn't do a lot, and I just couldn't even fathom that my next big birthday was then going to be 30, and I am 6-7 months away from that, which is just absolutely crazy. But I am trying to figure out how I feel about it. So yeah, this episode is basically going to be on how I feel on the lead up to turning 30. Now, a bit of context, I am still very good friends with my friends from school. So from secondary school, we've been friends since we was about like, how old are you when you go to secondary school? 11, 12? So I'm still really good friends with, there's a small group of us, and, it's got smaller as the years have gone on, and we don't see each other an awful lot, but when we see each other, it's literally like nothing changed. It's so lovely. And, we all make jokes. One of them is 30 this year. The rest of us are 30 next year. And whenever I mention that or we make a joke, their instant reaction is, oh my God, I can't think about it, whatever. And if I'm completely honest, I don't have that fear of being 30 that a lot of people do have. That, oh my God, so scary. I'm going to be 30, I've got to have all my shit figured out. But I do understand that it does come with pressure, and that is what I think feels scary about turning 30. As much as I try not to put too much pressure on myself nowadays, I do feel pressure. And some days I feel very proud of everything I've achieved going into my 30s. I've built a business. I live with my partner. I've got a really beautiful flat. Not that I don't own my flat. I rent a really beautiful flat. And I know what makes me happy. Other days I spiral that I'm not married yet. I haven't had kids yet. But I also wouldn't have wanted to have kids yet or be married yet. I spiral that I don't own a house, and I have friends that own houses, but I also don't want to own a house yet. And I suppose I spiral that I haven't got everything figured out. I would say that 75% of the time I feel very content with where I am in life, but the other 25% definitely can be rough, if I'm completely honest. But I also know it's completely made up pressure, and yet it still gets to me. anyone who is to be honest, it's been happening for years, but especially in the last year, I cannot open Instagram, Facebook without someone announcing they are engaged, someone announcing that they are pregnant, someone posting their baby, someone posting their wedding photos. And I don't want this to sound like I'm bitter. I don't want this to sound like I'm bitter or that I'm complaining about that. But I think ultimately, every time I open it and see these things and think, I'm not there yet. Am I doing something wrong? Am I behind? So I'm adding this pressure to myself purely just through these small little squares of photos I see or rectangles now on Instagram, that I see on social media. So, yeah, that is kind of where I'm at. And I just think it feels like a very good place to start with this podcast, because it kind of was where the idea for the podcast actually has grown from, I suppose, the idea of being in this, weird place in my life. So something I have learnt from a client lately, and I know that I wanted to talk about the fact that I see a lot of women on a one-to-one basis. I get to talk to a lot of different women, and, I have a lot of clients who are all different ages, but I also have got a lot of clients who are my age, and we are all in completely different situations, and where we are at in life is completely different. I have some that have been married for a few years and are my age. I have some that have got a few kids and that are my age, or younger than me and they've got a few kids. I've got some that are very single, newly single, looking to go travelling for the first time. And it does actually relieve that pressure, speaking to so many of these women and realising that, it doesn't matter what you see on social media, and it doesn't matter what you see or hear from other people. None of us have got this shit figured out. The client that's younger than me, that has got 2 kids, is engaged and has a house. When I talk to her, she doesn't have her shit actually worked out any more than I do. We are all doing this we're all doing this at different paces, but ultimately living life for the first time. We're all living life for the first time, and again, there's no right or wrong way to do it. What I used to think my 30s or 30 would look like, like I said, you're a real grown up, you're married, we all know what it's like to be in your teens and your 20s going, I want to be married by 25 and have my first baby by 28. And it's so funny because I don't, there is a part of me that thinks, okay, that would have been lovely. But I ultimately don't think I would have wanted that now. And like I said, I really don't want anyone to sit and listen to this and think, well, I did that and she's saying that's wrong. There is no right or wrong. If you did get married at 25 and you had kids at 28, whatever age I said, that's not wrong. It was the way that your life worked out. But for myself, I don't think I would have wanted that now. I sit and actually really, really think about it. I have really enjoyed my 20s, but they have been really hard. Really, really hard, not that any route is an easy route, I really did make it difficult for myself wanting to start my own business and work for myself, and figuring that out has been amazing, but rough. And especially through the lockdowns and things like that, I really did question whether it was the right thing to be doing. My really long-term relationship ending when I was 22 and dealing with that, and then becoming single for the first time and actually, having to be by myself, especially again through lockdown, realising that I was very good by myself, and then meeting my partner and realising what I actually want from a relationship and what I want from my life. I feel like, although 10 years seems like a really, really long time, and it is, and you change a lot, like when I look back to my early 20s, mid 20s and where I'm at now, I am a completely different person in every phase. But 10 years goes so fast, and as much as I have learned a lot, I still feel like I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And like I said, what it used to look like was, you have your shit figured out. That's it. And I do feel like a lot of the time I don't have my shit figured out at all. And I know that a lot of people feel like that. Bless my grandma, my mama. She calls herself a recycled teenager. She's in her late 80s, and she says that she genuinely still feels like a teenager mentally, but physically her body isn't matching up to that. And I know that sounds really miserable and sad, but I don't mean it in a sad way. I mean it in a way that I don't think we ever feel old enough, or like we have our shit figured out, or that, we've made it, ever. I could sit here with 3 kids surrounding me, a dog, a ring on my finger, married 3-4 years in a beautiful big house, and I can tell you now that I probably emotionally would probably feel exactly the same as I do now. I do think timelines are fake. They're literally just a social construct that we've all just been led to believe that is the way that life is meant to go. You are meant to go to school, go to university. Well, I didn't do that. Go to university, get a job, meet a partner, get married, have kids. And then once you've done that, especially as a woman, once you've done that, you've completed life. There's the way that the world is made for women is that you have your kids, you raise your kids, and then after that, there's nothing. And I think as time goes on, obviously, women are having really beautiful and amazing careers, and that coincides with having kids if you want to even have kids now. But ultimately, the world is still made in a way that women after that there's nothing, that you've completed it. You've completed life. And I just believe that if I had kids younger, or got married younger and done all of these things younger, would I have got to a certain age and feel like, shit, I've done it? Like, what now? And I don't want to feel like that. I want to feel like, you make the most out of life, and I do want to have kids and things like that, but it will happen when it happens. And I will talk about a lot of these things. And I wanted this episode to kind of be a bit of an intro into everything. And then each individual thing I'm talking about here, I will go into more detail in episodes. Like, I do want to talk about having kids and how I feel about having kids, marriage, working, things like that. So I will go into these in a lot more detail. But I think we can all sit and compare to each other and what we're doing. I suppose I feel very lucky in a way, because me and all my friends are at very similar stages, and I think, or my core group of friends that, like I said, I went to school with, we're all at very similar stages, and I think that ultimately does actually take the pressure off a little bit, because I look at them and none of them have got children yet. A few are getting married next year and they're engaged, but we are all at very similar points, and that does take the pressure off. But I can imagine that if I had a lot of friends that have already had kids and already got married, and say I was single, it could be really hard to kind of sit and not compare yourself to them, or feel like you're failing when marriage and a relationship doesn't equal success. It doesn't. But yeah, and it's also okay to realise that maybe you don't want what you used to want, or you do want what you used to not want. And I probably said that in the worst way, but like I said, 10 years is a really long time to be in your 20s, and you change so much. And like I said, my God, the things that I thought I wanted in my early 20s and even my mid 20s, I didn't even know if I wanted kids. And now I know for a fact that I'm so eager to have children. Well, there's my frontal lobe developing, I think, but it's strange how much, things changes. And I've actually written here, letting 30 be soft rather than sorted, and without trying to sound like some big old cringy philosopher. I think that's what I kind of want this podcast, and I also want my life to be going into my 30s, that it is soft rather than having it all figured out and just, everything being perfect. I also have made a note about something I've learned from clients, and this is another thing I want to do. I kind of want to, and I will obviously, if it's something that I genuinely feel like is a bit more personal, but I think a lot of people can learn from, I will speak to clients and obviously ask permission. But I kind of want to put in each episode something that I've learned from a client that's maybe relevant to the topic I'm going to be talking about. So for this one, I've put, so a thing I've learned from clients lately. So one of my clients recently said, and she's already in her 30s, and she was like, I don't feel like I'm in my 30s either. I still have to Google how to boil rice. And that really cracked me up, because I just thought, oh my God, like, does that not just sum everything up? My mum, by the time she was 30, was married and had I can't remember how old when she had me. She had at least like a 3-year-old. And, I look at my mum, and my friends have always called my mum Nigella Lawson. She is literally the Nigella and can cook anything and makes the most incredible meals. And, my mum is like the ultimate housewife. And I know housewife sometimes has a really bad connotation, but my mum is like a girl boss in her own way when it comes to being like the ultimate housewife. I grew up with cooked dinners on the table every single night, which is like such a blessing. Now I know how difficult it is to, come home from work and stuff and cook myself dinner, even to think of dinners to have every single night. And the fact that she was home cooking meals every single night for us is she genuinely, the real OG. Vicky was the real OG there. But it's so true, saying I have to still Google how to boil rice. Like, I double triple check on how to cook chicken, and I'm nearly 30. I hadn't cooked myself proper meals before I moved out, like nearly 3 years ago, 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. I'd never lived away from home. And next thing I know, I've got to then all of a sudden learn how to do all these things and buy things for my house I've never thought about, having to buy. But I love that, because honestly, none of us know what we are doing. Like, none of us know how to do these things unless we are taught, or we Google them, or like ChatGPT them now. And the more I talk to women that are in and around their 30s, the more I realise that we are just all making it up as we go. Like, no one knows the answers to things. Like, we're all learning. Like I said, we've all only been on Earth for the age that we are. Even our parents, they've never done life before. And here they are, us thinking that they are, these superhumans that know how to do life. They don't know what the hell they're doing either. So no one hits 30 and then just has their life together. And if they do, then I would quite like to know where they learnt everything, and if they could kind of put that all in some kind of spreadsheet for me. That would be incredible. But I'm going to keep this episode just a tiny bit shorter than, I don't know how long I want these episodes to be. I also don't want to put the pressure on myself to, make them be an hour or make them be half an hour every single time. I think some will be longer than others, and I think when they are bigger topics, they will be, like I said, I think in the intro episode, they will be deeper dives and we'll kind of really get into them. And then some of them will just be a thought I'm having maybe that week, or something I'm struggling with, or something that I've thought of and want to make a short little episode. So ultimately, I'm about 6 months away from 30, and some days it feels really exciting, and sometimes it feels like hell, and sometimes it's just like a genuine panic spiral. And I'm sending my best friends voice notes about how I want to have a baby, but then I don't want to have a baby yet, and maybe I just want to have a dog, I want to get a puppy, but then maybe I want to give up my career and do something else, or maybe I don't want to give up my career. And yeah, it's messy, but yeah, I don't know. I think maybe the goal just isn't to be sorted, and it's just to feel a little bit more like yourself every year. Um, each year there's hardship, and going into your 30s isn't going to be any different. It's still going to be just as hard as your 20s. I think everyone says you enjoy your 30s more because you feel a lot more kind of settled and assured of yourself and you have more money. And listen, I can already feel that is the vibe coming. But that doesn't mean that things aren't going to be really hard and you're not going to have difficult times. So yeah, I think just feeling a bit more yourself is ultimately the goal. But if you are in the same boat, I'd love to know, and I'd love to know what you think of this first episode. Please comment, like, share, subscribe, and yeah, this was fun. I thought that recording episodes by myself talking about things that are a bit more kind of vulnerable and just about life would actually be a lot scarier than this, but I really enjoyed this and I want to keep doing more of it, so I will. But yeah, I would love to know what you all think. I would love to know how you all feel, what age you are. Like I don't know, maybe you feel this way and you're going to be turning 20 and you feel this way. Maybe you're going to be turning 40 and you're going to turn this way, you know. Everyone's doing things a lot older now. Maybe 40 is the new 30. Maybe I'll turn 30 and not feel any different. And maybe all the pressure will just be relieved automatically and I'll feel absolutely fine. And yeah, maybe I've got another 10 years until I spiral. Maybe 40 is the one that I'll be struggling with. But yeah, thank you for listening. I really enjoyed this and I am really excited already to record my next one. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Sunday and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.